what does levelling up mean?
Well, I mean, the chair of the Social Mobility Commission is meant to help the government to enable it so that everyone has an opportunity to be able to do whatever they want to do with their lives. I'm particularly interested in family, school, and routes into the workplace. Although obviously I'll be interested in building a body of evidence and listening to other people's ideas in terms of what we ought to concentrate on. But those three for me, family, school, and routes into the workplace, I think are key when trying to enable social mobility. And doing that means making it so that the accident of your birth does not mean that you are unable to pursue whatever it is you want to do in life.
And a lot of people, you've been very critical of what some say woke culture and this idea of identity politics. And do you feel because I certainly feel that we're almost trying to focus, and we're too preoccupied by what identity somebody happens to have. And actually, we should be eradicating that from, being meaningful in dictating your life chances.
Well, indeed. And I mean, look, at Michaela, we have lots of disadvantaged children, and they have doors open to them because of the various things that they do, like working hard and not allowing a sense of victimhood to engulf them and convince them that there isn't any point in trying. Just this morning at Assembly, I told them about the Social Mobility Commission, and I said, going to run an essay competition for them to give me ideas to give Boris Johnson and what it is that they do to enable social mobility for themselves. How are they changing their stars? Now, obviously, there are things in which government can do. School, for instance, is really important. Providing an environment for children that has high expectations of them so that they can reach those high standards. But then there's also what the family does. And I do very much want to concentrate on that as well. Culture matters amongst families and what they manage to do at home. And I do think people can underestimate how much a family can have impact on a child and how little some families realize how important, for instance, reading to your child is, not giving your child a smartphone. I see toddlers on the tube sitting on their smartphones, and I think, oh my goodness, take the phone away, give them a book. But that knowledge isn't out there, and I'd like to find a way to make that knowledge commonplace.
I agree with you. It sickens me. For example, if you're on an aeroplane, I mean, that was a long time ago, wasn't it? But if you're on an aeroplane and you see the kids there with the parents just shove an iPad in front of them and go, that'll keep them quiet. And you think, I honestly think we're going to end up with, I think it's going to cause massive mental health problems for children, actually, the idea of that you're shoving these things in front of them. But do you think, just to get back to what you're saying...
Does.
Yeah, well, probably already. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
In teenage years, it's a real problem, mental health issues. Children who end up suicidal, who have depression and anxiety, and this stems from them being on their screens constantly, and the social media and the miserable interactions that they can have, the dangerous positions they put themselves in with regard to strangers. It is such an issue. So there are so many things that families can do to protect their children. And this is something that I would like to address via this new platform that I now have.
Absolutely. Congratulations on said platform, by the way. I just wanted to return to something you alluded to earlier. Do you think now that some parents have forgotten that it's their job to raise their child as well? It's not all down to the school?
Yes, I do. While, of course, I believe in public education, the state providing free education, this is my whole life. It does in many ways undermine the sense of personal responsibility that families ought to have in looking after their child's own learning. Sometimes on Twitter, I talk about what parents should do, helping their child with reading, teaching their child to read. And parents will come back and say, but that's not my job, that's the job of the schools. But I think it's always the parents who are the first port of call for children, and that what you do at home matters. You should be counting the peas on the plate. You should be counting the houses on the street, and you should not be giving your toddler a smartphone. So these are ideas that I want to explore in the role. But then there are obviously things that government can do as well in terms of providing excellent schooling, and as well routes into the workplace later. I'd like to look at trying to expand those. I know many schools struggle with the few apprenticeships that are out there. That's another thing that I'd like to look at.
Indeed. And Your colleagues, who are now your colleagues, they have obviously been working on this, some of the other commissioners, on issues of social mobility for some time. I read one of the findings they found was that disadvantaged pupils in England, now 7 months behind their more privileged peers at school, the gap has grown over the last year. You've been very open about the fact you're small c conservative and you have a particular view about how classrooms should be run and how the education system should be run. Do you think schools, as they are at the moment, would be receptive to some of the tactics that you've used, which have obviously proven to be very successful?
Yes. I know they are. We get 600 visitors here a year, mainly teachers who take the ideas back to their classrooms and to their schools. I had 3 head teachers in here the other day who have got the ideas, many of the ideas that we have here, they're having happen in their schools. And one of them was saying to me how it's completely transformed his school for the better. So that would be something, again, that I would want to try and see, well, how do we get more and more schools doing this sort of thing that works? It obviously works. We're not the only school doing this sort of thing. And we all see the benefit of it. And when I say this sort of thing, I mean really high standards of discipline, teachers leading the learning and teaching from the front of the classroom and being the authority. It's the same thing with parents. Adult authority has sort of disappeared a bit in our culture, both in schools and in families, and we need to get that back. Adults should be in charge and they shouldn't feel bad about it. It's not for parents to be friends with their children. It's for parents to be parents and in charge so that their child can